Hey, good morning, y'all. Josh's Severe Weather. Happy Thursday to you. And we've got a very busy end to the month expected here in the deep south. Now, interestingly, this time of the year, we typically see outbreaks farther to the north, but that has not been the case. And the reason why, we just have a big trough bringing cold air into the northeast, into the eastern United States, and that has kind of suppressed everything south, but it does not mean that we are immune to severe weather whatsoever. A very active storm track with two storms that we're tracking. One that hit Texas hard last night, that is moving through the deep south today. The second one set to follow in its footsteps, just a little stronger and a little bit farther to the south and east. So let's take a look at the graphic I've put together. Now, this is not the official Storm Prediction Center forecast. So when you see these colors, I don't want to throw you off, but I just want to kind of show you where I think the chances are going to be greatest of seeing severe weather right on through the end of the weekend. Storm number one, which hit Texas last night, is going to be moving through the deep south and up into the Tennessee Valley here over the next 2 days. And that's going to send more moisture and more instability up into the Carolinas and all the way up into West Virginia here later tomorrow. Storm two follows right behind it, taking a little bit farther south track. And it is going to bring a repeat to Texas of some very nasty storms, I believe, here later tomorrow into tomorrow night. And that tracks through the Gulf states and up the East Coast here over the weekend. Now, today is April 27th, and it is a day that a lot of folks will not forget from 12 years ago, the anniversary of what was part of a 4-day outbreak of tornadoes, but the 27th was the worst. And we had well over 250 tornado reports spanning from Mississippi and Arkansas all the way up into New York State. The headline of that was the Tuscaloosa tornado, but there were a lot of strong tornadoes across Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Northwest Georgia. So it is not going to be anything like this, thank goodness. But I did want to bring this up and offer you guys just a prayer, a quick prayer to remember those who had lost everything in those tornadoes. So God, just please be with these people as these anniversaries do not get any easier. Just a very difficult time for you, but please help comfort those folks who had their lives changed on that very day 12 years ago. It's in His name that we pray, amen. So I don't really do that, but I mean, I feel like I've been called to um, just called to remember those. I don't just go out here making videos to scare people. I really want people to be prepared, but also to understand that I'm a human being and I am empathetic and sympathetic for those who are going through these tough times with these weather patterns that have happened historically and coming up in the future. Currently, though, we do have one upper level low spinning through Oklahoma, another one going to drop down from the northwest very quickly on its heels. You can see very active weather over the south, kind of three separate storm complexes, one here over the Northeast Gulf. That's going to head into Florida. Once again, we have more active weather for Florida today. Second one moving through Louisiana, Mississippi, and we are going to talk about that quite a bit here. The third one is kind of weakening, but heading through southeast Texas and may kind of resurge here over South Texas later today. This track is going to continue eastward into the Carolinas here at the end of the week. The one behind it's going to actually take kind of a bigger bend and then come up the East Coast here later this weekend. Here's a look at what happened yesterday, and you can see, while it wasn't a big tornado day, fortunately, there were some tornado warnings, but really the story is the big hail that was reported across north central Texas, especially around the Waco area. Reports of 4-inch plus hail, and that is the kind of hail that if you're out in it, you need to have a helmet. Just very dangerous to have that battering you in the head. And that continued overnight into Texas and Louisiana and formed kind of more of a complex of storms that sped up some. I'm not ignoring you in Florida. We had an enhanced risk in Florida, some very big hail as well over the middle parts of the peninsula and briefly on the East Coast as well. And that extended all the way up into southeast Georgia. And we're going to see more severe weather in some of these same areas today. Right now, the map shows not a completely quiet map. We have a new severe thunderstorm watch for the central Gulf states, but still freeze watches and warnings in the lower lakes and a little bit of winter weather as well across the Rockies lingering, with flood warnings and watches as this snow continues to melt out west where temperatures are heating up. This is from the tornado cowboy, Matthew Waters, who was storm chasing in Waco yesterday, 4+ inch hail. Can you imagine getting hit in the head with that? I just can't even fathom it. I've never seen hail that big, but that's going to unfortunately probably cause a lot of roof and vehicle damage last night in Texas. And now we do have the severe thunderstorm watch. Fortunately, the hail size is not going to be as strong, but wind damage certainly is possible along the Gulf Coast here in Mississippi, Alabama, and Western Florida, and still briefly over parts of the Florida parishes of Louisiana as well, around Covington, Mandeville, and Slidell. Here is the outlook, though, for today. And you can see that the area that got hit hard last night is going to be in the clear for now, but more coming tomorrow. We do have a slight risk, though, over deep South Texas and over the central Gulf Coast states. Not a big tornado risk at this point, but something we're going to have to keep an eye on as the morning wears on here. There is some wind shear. There will also be, as this upper low moves into Arkansas, into the Mississippi Valley, a small risk for a tornado. And you did see on the map that I put out here that the yellow does extend all the way up into about Memphis and north central Arkansas. So don't want to ignore what's going on there. Certainly a possibility of seeing some severe weather, but I think the greater chance stays off to the south. There is some threat for hail as well on the Gulf Coast, and significant hail possible in deep South Texas from about Corpus Christi down through Port Mansfield all the way to Brownsville, McAllen, and Weslaco, Texas. We could see some big hail here later today into this evening, and the threat for some severe wind in some of the same places as well. Gonna get to tomorrow in just a bit, but look at this once again. Let's go east, and then I'll jump right back. This is also the area of concern today, and you can see again the east coast of Florida right up into southeast Georgia, and also the threat here in the Panhandle and into southwestern Georgia. And I have this area highlighted in here. I'm going to show you guys why in a little bit, but as this storm complex hits some warmer air and accelerates this afternoon, I think we could see perhaps some more enhanced severe weather across this area of north central and northeastern Florida. That does include Tallahassee, Lake City, Jacksonville, Ocala once again. And the models are not in great agreement yet on how this is going to play out, but they do indicate a storm complex moving east. And I think it'll be unstable enough to see maybe some more organized severe weather. Slight risk, probably not a bad forecast if I were going out with it, but I'm going to try to be a little bit more precise with what I think could happen. You'll see the risk for tornadoes here, especially this morning into the midday hours here in the central and eastern Gulf states. We could see a little bit of hail as well in here, but a better chance for hail on the east coast of Florida. Similar setup to yesterday, although maybe not quite as extreme as it's not quite as cold aloft. We also see the threat for some strong winds across this region as well. Tomorrow will not be as busy, but we could still see some severe weather in this area, and that threat shifts up into the Carolinas. With not really a chance for tornadoes, but a small chance for some hail, especially farther north, and a chance for some severe wind in this region as well. And then day 3, that will bring the chance for storms back to the same areas today here on Saturday, the central Gulf Coast region. No outlook yet for Sunday, but I think we'll be watching Florida and up the east coast to southeastern Virginia. Now, heading back to Texas, this is the area of big concern again tomorrow, and the enhanced risk goes from the Red River down through Dallas-Fort Worth all the way down to Waco and just west once again. I would not be shocked to see this area grown and shifting a little bit south and east once again. It's looking very similar to what we saw yesterday. The threat for tornadoes is increased here as we do have some wind shear that'll pick up in the afternoon. I think the threat for hail is going to be bigger, though, a lot like what we saw yesterday, especially in here. My map shows it a little south and west of Dallas, closer to Waco and just north of Round Rock, and maybe some big hail all the way down into the San Antonio region as well. And we have the threat for damaging wind in here as well. But big hail certainly on tap for us potentially here. And then you'll see things quieting down for the weekend as our storm track finally heads east. Sorry to jump around on you guys, but you know, it's just how the weather's been. Here's Storm 1. This is the upper level chart. This is pivotalweather.com. You see it moving through Oklahoma into Arkansas and then weakening some as it moves and lifts up into the Great Lakes region tomorrow night. Storm 2 drops farther south. It will eventually kind of cut off here again in the Arklatex region here on Saturday. So a farther south track, meaning it suppresses some of that instability a little bit farther to the south and east. But this can still change, and certainly it's a setup that favors a big storm coming up the East Coast, because what'll happen is as we get to the end of the weekend, a bigger trough drops down out of central Canada. So we have a cold, unsettled setup here later this weekend in the Great Lakes and then in the Northeast. But this bigger system is going to actually pick up the second one, kind of lift it up by its bootstraps and pull it and slingshot it right up the East Coast. And as a result, we have a very unsettled end to the weekend and start to next week across the East Coast. And it'll be colder, it'll be unsettled, it'll be windy here in the Great Lakes. And that does include Ontario and southwestern Quebec as well. Behind it, we'll keep an eye on the storm system over California. The modeling is backed off on how progressive it gets and how far east it gets, but the trough over the east takes over. Could see disturbances coming in down below it, which means maybe a little bit more severe weather potential in the southeast. But again, the uncertainty level is a little bit too high to get too cute with that. So here's the European model. You see two storm systems on the map, the one in the south and east. That moves eastward here and right up the mid-Atlantic coastline here as we get into the day. Tomorrow it's going to be wet, cool, nasty weather over Ohio, Pennsylvania, right on down into Virginia. There'll be a warm sector that brings that threat for severe weather in the afternoon and evening. And that actually could get up into eastern Ohio, more likely West Virginia, and then briefly over the Carolinas as well. Storm number 2, though, look how far south it dives. We see it in the Dakotas this morning and dropping all the way down and kind of reforming into central Texas here later tomorrow evening. And that's where all the nasty weather is expected to be. That moves eastward, and we see a big outbreak of potential severe weather and a lot of rain over Florida and the eastern Gulf states, followed by cool, wet weather right behind it here over Mississippi and Louisiana. Up north, we'll see snow mixing in on Saturday afternoon and especially Saturday night in Wisconsin and the UP of Michigan and maybe eastern Minnesota as well. It's going to be not quite cold enough at the surface to see a big accumulation, but the upper levels will cool. And at night, that could allow some heavier wet snow rates, especially on the grassy areas. But keep your eyes on the system here over the southeast on Sunday. It is going to bring a lot of rain with it, a lot of nasty weather, maybe a bit of severe weather for the coastal plain in North Carolina. And then that tracks up through the mid-Atlantic Sunday afternoon, and Sunday night is going to be a total washout over the Delmarva up into the northeast into Pennsylvania and New York State. And this storm accelerates, so now the models show it drying out on Monday morning over the northeast and getting wetter across New England as we get to early in the day Monday, including the Boston area, Portland, Maine, up to Augusta. And then low pressure just circulates, and it'll dry out across the southeast early next week, fortunately, with actually a decent stretch of weather expected for many spots here for about 3 to 4 days before potentially another storm system. Rain totals are going to be very high here. Amounts will be well over an inch. We're looking at maybe 3 to 4 inches somewhere here in the Northeast, and maybe even 5 inches in parts of Maine, and the UP of Michigan could see 6 inches. So flooding will be a possibility here. We'll still see some needed rainfall, though, here in the southern high plains. And then here's a look at the satellite imagery. This is a forecast from the NAM model, and it shows our storm complex here tracking this morning across Mississippi, Louisiana, into Mobile, Alabama. This will continue into Florida, and then we'll see more storms popping up over South Texas this afternoon. We get a slow break here, or a quick break, and then as we get to tomorrow, more storms firing up very quickly here later in the day over Texas, southeast Oklahoma, and maybe even getting into Arkansas, Mississippi, and northern Louisiana in the evening hours. But it's like one after another here, just kind of a 1-2 punch. And then this will continue to move eastward here. It'll be a cloudy, cooler day here on Saturday in northeastern Texas. Here's the radar from the HRRR from pivotalweather.com. And you can see here the model playing catch up. I still think it's too slow, but we see storms moving out over the Gulf, hitting Louisiana this morning. And then some scattered showers and storms popping up over Arkansas and northwestern Mississippi. Some of them could bring a brief hail and locally strong wind threat. These will move through Memphis here around 7, 8 o'clock tonight, and then out through Mississippi and northern Alabama, weakening after that. Here comes the next storm jumping southward through the panhandle of Texas in the morning tomorrow. Should be a quiet day until about 4 o'clock, when storms very quickly are expected to blow up here over central and northeastern Texas. And these will continue to grow and move quickly south and eastward through the evening hours. And through San Antonio, we do have a big hail threat. Then to the coast and the coastal bend here, this is right around midnight to 1 a.m. Central Time here on Saturday. We'll have more detail on that in tomorrow's video as well. We see a big amount of storm fuel coming back behind this first system here. As we get to tomorrow afternoon, you can see looks very similar to what we had yesterday. Storm fuel, that's the Cape here, does climb up into some pretty high levels south and west of Dallas. Dallas itself, not going to see that higher storm fuel, but it is possible. Waco, though, down to Round Rock, Austin, and San Antonio, loaded for bear here with the threat for big hail coming from some of this higher Cape here. And then we'll see that continuing all the way down here into deep South Texas in the evening hours Friday night, early on Saturday as well. Not a huge tornado threat here as we move along here. You can see the indices climb a little bit, so there'll be a brief period where we could have a few tornado warnings here. Same places as yesterday, it looks like, but not really a big tornado outbreak expected here from this next system, although the wind shear is going to be climbing a little bit, so somebody could see an isolated strong tornado. But looking at where the model run is showing kind of your maximum updrafts, you can see there is an area to keep an eye on here in Arkansas here tonight into tomorrow morning, and also across northern Mississippi. But the area to be most focused on is across Texas and Louisiana. Here's a zoomed in view of the HRRR. We see the rain moving away in Texas. My internet's a little slow trying to play catch up here. Let me take a deep breath and see if it comes back. If not, we're just going to reload it. Okay, well, this website clearly has a lot of people on it, so I'm not going to be able to show you that. But South Texas, all right. Sorry, folks, not going to happen here. Pivotal weather is kind of met its match here. But in the southeast, we see this storm complex today moving quickly into northern Florida. There'll be storms out ahead of the main complex. Those we have to watch for rotation for a few tornado warnings. I think the model's maybe a little bit too slow on how this evolves and moves across Florida. But we'll see a lot of cloud cover and some more storms across the eastern Carolinas tonight. We get a break, and then additional development expected here tomorrow towards the evening hours. And we also have to watch back across the Arklatex here on Saturday morning as those storms advance eastward into yet another unstable air mass. Here's the forecast radar, and you can see, I think the models are a little slow, but we're going to see storms popping up and moving quickly eastward here in the area that is under a severe thunderstorm watch through noon. And I expect we'll see another watch east of this area as we get through the afternoon hours. And let's see if we can get back to the radar here. You'll see even Georgia under the gun after this first system moves through, and it's got it going through Tallahassee here at about 4 or 5 o'clock and then into northeast Florida this evening. I think it could be a little bit slow. I think this will be about an hour or two quicker, but behind it, we'll still have to keep an eye on things as the upper low moves through for some isolated supercells moving into Alabama overnight, then weakening. But as we get to tomorrow, more storms get generated with the heating of the day over the Carolinas, Georgia, and even into, I say Carolinas, but that includes South Carolina towards the evening hours, especially up into North Carolina, while Florida could see a squall line moving in off of the Gulf. That happens late tonight, then we get a break, and then another squall line moves through and creates additional storms as the sea breeze gets going here tomorrow afternoon. So Florida probably has 3 more outbreaks of storms right on through Saturday, it looks like. Storm fuel is still pretty high across Florida. It's not super high farther north and east, but it does climb here on Friday afternoon ahead of our next storm system, and I think we could see an upgrade to a slight risk coming across this area. Let's see if this ends up working for me. Okay, here we go. So here is the HRRR for Florida. It does show an area of storms that pops up ahead of our main complex. I think this is going to end up being a little bit slow by an hour or two, but definitely have to watch out for widespread wind damage and some hail over the Florida Panhandle. We have to watch out for hailers again across the eastern peninsula of Florida this afternoon and early this evening. And then as this next wave comes in overnight, I think it'll weaken, but maybe the Tampa Bay area gets some needed rainfall and maybe some severe weather here around midnight or so. This will move into South Florida tomorrow morning. We get a break before the next wave moves in. This one looks a little bit less organized for northern Florida tomorrow, but potentially more severe weather across southeastern Florida in the afternoon. And the model doesn't go out any further, but I think we're going to see a repeat as we get into the weekend. In the Carolinas, just a cool and wet day today. We see scattered areas of rain moving through, probably no severe weather at this point. As we, though, get into tomorrow, we see heavier rainfall in the morning. That lifts up into Virginia, West Virginia, into the mid-Atlantic states here. And then we get a break from Raleigh on westward here around mid-morning tomorrow, where the heaviest rain moves through the coastal areas, where we could see a few locally strong storms. But then we see additional storm development as our upper low moves into eastern Kentucky and West Virginia. And there could be a little bit of severe weather moving through Charleston, Huntington, all the way up to Parkersburg, and even Bridgeport and Clarksburg later in the afternoon tomorrow. And this certainly could blow up a few stronger storms across Virginia and both of the Carolinas towards the evening hours. Some timing differences on this. whereas the NAM is a little bit slower, the HER is a little bit quicker. But tomorrow evening, we'll have to keep an eye on things across Virginia, North Carolina, and eastern South Carolina. Then we get a break, and Saturday looks to be a lot better day. Could be cloudy to start, but overall a dry day Saturday. And then the next wave comes in on Sunday. I'm going to zip past this here because we just don't have a lot of time. But here's Sunday. Here's our next storm system. It's actually over the Gulf of Mexico Saturday night, then moves northeastward. And you'll see the warm sector gets up into the Carolinas here, especially at the coast on Sunday morning. Not the best time of day to see severe weather, but it could happen. Mainly, I'm concerned about eastern South Carolina, but that could get up into the Wilmington area here and all the way up into the Outer Banks before things clear out. Farther north and east, we'll take a quick look at the European as well. We see Storm 1 moving up through the Great Lakes here into Saturday morning. It'll be wet in Pennsylvania. Storm 2 comes up very quickly behind it. Saturday night, Sunday morning, rain spreads into Pennsylvania. Sunday afternoon, a washout around D.C., Baltimore, and Philly in the afternoon. And then in the evening around New York City, northern Pennsylvania, central New York, and southern New England. And then early on Monday across northern and eastern New England, followed by colder air after that. So I apologize for the models slow to load. I really didn't want to take any more of your time, but I'll have updates on my community page. And if you're not a subscriber, I encourage you to subscribe. We just made it past 5,000 subscribers. Not great, but hey, I'm happy with it. I mean, we started this in early December, and here we are not even 6 months, and we're already over 5,000. Pretty good for a weather page, but there's a lot of people out there, I believe, still need to see this, and I would appreciate it if you could subscribe if you haven't yet, and share with your friends who are in these affected areas as well. So thank you so much for your support today. Again, I mentioned that I am a believer, I'm a Christian, and that's what drives me to do what I do every day. Those that are getting hit by storms, I'm happy to pray for you. I pray anyway, and I just encourage you to be strong in this testament. I want to read a quick verse from you from the Old Testament, Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. And that's the very reason that I do this, because I know God is with me. And I encourage you to seek God if you haven't already, because if there's anybody that is not going to turn their back on you, it's God. Maybe it looks like you're going through a time where you are being forsaken. However, that is the enemy, that is the devil getting in there, trying to disguise himself as God. That happens every day, where we have these enemy forces that we have to do battle with constantly. But the Lord gives us what we need to do that battle, and things may not happen on the time you would like it or I would like it. And I'm a very impatient person, trust me. So I go to God a lot on this, but you will follow God's path if you believe in him, and eventually he will reveal himself to you. And in the end, there is eternal life through Jesus Christ, our Savior. So I wanted to share that with you. That is the good news. That is the gospel. Do not be discouraged. I know it's easy to be. Trust me, we all go through it, but be strong, be courageous, putting on the full armor of God, and he will come through for you in the end. And that's important to me, and I'm happy to pray for you, knowing that you may be discouraged in whatever you're doing right now, but know that there's a huge community of believers that is happy to pray for you. And even though the enemy wants you to believe that that is not the way to go, truly, God has already provided for us. We just need to believe in him more. Thank you so much for your time today. Stay safe down there. We'll talk again soon. God bless you.